last night around the hotel and today in the halls and such. And so before we get into some questions and what we're going to have as an interview, Wanda said she wanted to say a few things. So Wanda, you've got an open mic.
Okay. Well, talking with all of you, I realized, of course for me, all this stuff was like second nature. I know where so much came from, because, you know. But ABATE was, the motorcycle rights movement was started because motorcycles were being legislated off the roads. That's why the organizations were started, because we were just literally getting legislated off the road. And I think people have forgotten how hard it was back in those days to get people to listen to motorcycles, to respect what we were trying to do, and to have motorcycle safety was just, you know, they didn't want to teach people to ride motorcycles because they just thought that would end up getting more people on motorcycles and more accidents and getting more killed. At least that's what they said, you know. So they didn't believe in training people. They didn't believe in any of that stuff. They just wanted, you know, to get us off the roads. But it was because the NHTSA, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, came up with this. And it was like they were supposed to have 10 things to improve highway safety. 10 things, improvements they could come up with that would improve the national highway safety. And there was a guy sitting at a desk one day, okay, just sitting there, figured, man, I think if we made helmets, you know, motorcycles wear helmets, we could cut down at least 60% of fatalities. I mean, this is how this started. They just had to keep cranking out more regulations, cranking out, coming up with ways. And that's why they started with this. They didn't have any testing. They didn't do anything. They had nothing behind this. It was just all summaries and projections and, you know, hell, I could do that, percentages.
So they pulled this information from
nowhere.
That's a polite way of saying what I think. As we warm up, I think she'll get a little looser with the descriptions. But, and that really was the start of the regulation, then that started the movement against the regulation, right?
Yeah, yeah. That and, well, like I said, the main thing was there was legislation all through it. We just couldn't, you know, it was time to do something about it. You had to start and make a stand somewhere, you know. So we started with, for me, it was a personal, I hated wearing a helmet. I absolutely hated wearing a helmet. And I just gotten my Sportster, and I was in love with that bike, you know. And, you know, now they want to take it away from me. You wait all those years and you finally last riding, and now they want to take it away from you. So, you know, it wasn't much of a choice for me. I had to do something. Of course, I was not I didn't actually say, hey, I'm going to go do this. I want to be, you know, ABATE of Indiana. I want to start this. I didn't say that. I was kind of like drafted or kind of snookered into doing it.
Well, we're certainly glad that you were. When did all this start? Give us the timeline, because you and I were talking the other night that, you know, we have people that have been members for 50 years, which is odd because we haven't been around for 50 years. So tell us when it all started.
Well, okay, I got involved in 1974, and started really reading about ABATE and all that good stuff. Then, in the beginning of 1975, they came out and said they was going to have a National Helmet Law Protest Day. Okay, and they were trying to get people to have these protests and this and that. So, Biker Lifestyle, Biker Magazine, Bob Bitchin, he was kind of in charge of it. So I called him up and asked where the protest was going to be held in Indiana. And there are none. There was none. Absolutely nothing was going on. So then I called Easy Riders. Nothing. Absolutely nothing going on. And that's when Easy Riders going, well, would you like to start an ABATE chapter? Would you, you know, be interested in doing this or that? And I said, well, I just don't see me doing that, you know. And the next time a magazine came out, there I was. Wanda, ABATE of Indiana. That was 1975. And the ABATE of Indiana made its debut June 29th, 1975. That's when I the first time I asked for people to sign up for ABATE, and no one did. We had this helmet protest, you know, and rode from South Bend to Elkhart. And we're all excited, you know, I'm excited thinking, oh, this is a sure thing, man. Everybody's going to want to repeal law. They're going to sign up. We're going to get this done. And all day long, you know, trying to get people to sign up. Not one person signed up. And later, after the protest was over with, and we were still kind of on a high. It was still a great thing. No, nothing like that had ever been done before. So we went to a restaurant, and this one of my neighbor's father, actually, Ed Miller, an electrician. He was an electrician, had his own business, and he rode a BMW. And he came up and he says, you know, and I was kind of like, well, you know, I'm really kind of down because not one person, I was just kind of sad that not one person wanted to sign up. And he goes, well, let me see the head of ABATer. You know, and you know what it is. So he signed up right there on the spot, and he was the very first member of ABATE of Indiana. And he signed up that day, so at least I got one membership that day. And I think Jingles, Ron Workman from Kokomo, was the second one because he was going to sign up, but he broke down, which is typical. But he sent it in the mail. And I didn't get many, though. It took a long time to get memberships for my dream.
So when was that turning point? When did you hit maybe, what was a big stepping stone or milestone? 100 members, 1,000 members, where did that happen?
10 members.
I think all along. I mean, every milestone, you know, up to, well, the first time I had 50 members, I thought that was, okay, we're starting to grow, you know, and then 100 members, you know, and by the time we were repealing the helmet law, we had like 350, 400 members back, you know, which is really good. I thought it was wonderful, you know, so, but, you know, when you're only getting, you know, $5 and $10 memberships, that's not a lot of money to work with.
What were events like at that time?
Well, we had the protest runs, and everybody wanted something, but nobody, I didn't have anybody to work it. No one wanted to work with me.
Sound familiar?
Well, they really hated working with a woman, you know. They didn't want, you know, I had a lot of resentment toward me back then, and it was hard to get people involved, real hard. But we didn't have, so, you know, the few friends I had, so we had to do all the work, you know, and I did, you know, I was up 24 hours a day for events and stuff, you know, working and from gate duty to whatever you had to do, you know. But events were very primitive, let's say. You know, the protest runs were primitive. We camped out wherever we got permission to be, you know, which wasn't nice places, you know. There was a like vacant lot by a railroad track was the first one in Indianapolis. And just places like that. We, you know, the nicest place, which really had some disastrous results, though, was in Fort Wayne. We had a park. They let us actually have a park, but we had some bad things happen down in Fort Wayne. Well, we had bad things happen to several of them, but
It was a different time, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
It was a different culture. Why don't you tell us about maybe your first trip to the State House, legislative activity?
oh wow. You know, I met several legislators first, you know, and got the lay of the land from them. They told me what to expect, what to do, you know, and I trusted them. And actually, the legislators I was working with were actually honest. It's amazing. I mean, you know, when they gave you their word to you, they kept it. And when they told me something, you know, it was right on the spot. But that's, you know, not all of them were like that, but the ones I worked with the closest were like that. But they helped me through. I went down to the State House. It was amazing. You know, you got lost. Well, the first time down there, I wore my boots. Never again. I had blisters. My feet were so tired because you were up and down the steps, you're the hallways, and all these little narrow hallways and steps and stuff to get to their offices. It's amazing how many little offices they have in these little places, you know. But it's never again. I always wore tennis shoes after that.
Get your track shoes on and do some running, huh?
Yeah.
And that hasn't changed any. That's still the way the legislative process works. You know, the hurry up and wait, running around. There was I think a sort of a chance meeting in the atrium or the rotunda with Governor Bowen.
Yes, let me get a drink of water here before I've been talking to all you people, which is so wonderful to meet you. But yes, we were down there. I mean, during the legislative session, I was down there 3 or 4 times a week. You know, I get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and drive down, and then back to make supper and all that. But we've been trying so hard to get a hold of Governor Bolton. We would call, try to get through to get a meeting, try anything we could do to set anything up. But we never, you know, we just couldn't reach him. We couldn't get to him, and you know. So one morning we had gotten there, and Balls was with me, and I was just taking my coat off in that atrium thing and put down a bunch of papers and all that stuff you carry with you. And Balls grabbed my jacket to help me off from it. I saw the governor. He was just coming out of the restroom. And I saw him across the way. Yeah, he's coming out of the restroom, and he got ahead of his state police, because state police always, you know, escort him everywhere and kind of protect him and keep people away from him. Well, he got ahead of them, so I ran out and grabbed the governor before the state police got back up with him and started talking to him. And really, you know, but then the state police catch up, and he's like, "It's okay, boys, you know, it's okay." And I sat there and talked to him. And that day, he gave me, you know, his word that he wouldn't veto if the helmet law repeal got to his desk. He wouldn't veto it. He let it become law without signing it, but he wouldn't veto it. He gave his word on that. But I also gave him my words is that, you know, if you'll do this for us, we come back with motorcycle safety, you know, because safety was, and we have a licensing program and all of that, which we kept our word on that too.
Of course, in the early days, back then in the 70s, actually until the early 1980s, most states, all you had to do was have a driver's license to be able to legally operate a motorcycle. What were your thoughts, and what was your vision, really, for licensing and rider education at that time? Did you ever dream it'd get to where we are today with 100,000 students trained?
Oh, I hope everybody be trained. That was a vision. It's like, you know, anybody could jump on a bike. I mean, there was people getting killed going home, brand new bike from the dealership, you know. It was just terrible because people didn't know whether they could ride them or not, and it just wasn't right. You know, we had enough trouble keeping bikes on the road. And my vision was for everybody to have training, you know. Anybody who wanted to ride it. It has worked out too, because that way they found out if they could or couldn't ride, or if they ever wanted to ride again, you know. So this was a good, yeah. Also, I wanted it in schools. You know, I thought it in schools, everything. Of course, you know, the way it's worked out, you know, it's really good. I'm really proud of the fact that the training program that has really helped all the way around. You know, I can't say enough about motorcycle training.
Well, at that time, would you have ever believed that sitting here some 35, 37 years later, ABATE of Indiana would be the sole source contractor for rider education and motorcycle licensing in the state of Indiana?
No.
Back then, did you have a seat at the table? Or, you know, did legislators or policymakers ask your opinion, or did you pretty much have to tell them your opinion?
Pretty much had to tell them my opinion when they let me. You know, the Bureau of Motor Vehicles was the hardest nut to crack, because when it came to legislation involving them, it's like, you shut up, we'll tell you how it's going to be done, you know. And that didn't go over with me, and it didn't go over with Balls either, you know. So we had quite a fight over some things. I had to give in some ways, you know, but basic principles was there. I didn't like the way they threw all the money in together. You know, I wanted the money to be separate, but so to go back into motorcycle safety. But we couldn't get it passed without their approval. We literally couldn't get it out of pass without the DMV saying, yes, it's okay.
And eventually that's exactly what you got done.
Yeah.
Because the first time it just sort of went into the general fund, and didn't get funneled into rider education programs, and then the language was made specific to make it a dedicated fund. So
Right.
we owe that to the folks that got all that done, umpteen years ago in the early 1980s. I want to keep this mostly about Indiana, and if we have time later, we might talk a little more about some national stuff. But who are some of the characters you worked with in those early years? I mean, Indiana was always sort of an innovator and a leader. Our friends Vince Consiglio and Jimmy Rhodes just got their Hummel law repealed this last year after fighting all those years. Vince sends his regards, by the way. He was going to try to be here, but he didn't make it. So, who were some of those folks, and what were your experiences with them?
Well, Jimmy's a real good old-time friend of mine. I always tease him, I say, Jimmy, get a woman. Don't get a repeal, get a woman up there. But, yeah, Jingles, Ron Workman, he came through for, I said, it was hard to get anybody. He was a huge character. I mean, he had this big heart. He was young, very young. Of course, we were all very young back then. But we didn't know what we were doing, but he offered to help, or I talked him into helping me. I mean, it wasn't, no one actually offered to help me. So I had to talk and, snatch them and drag them into helping me. But he helped a lot, and he helped me with the bikers a lot. He also did a lot of crazy things too that got me in trouble. The guys are always getting me in trouble.
Tell us, pick your story, a story of your choosing. Pick one of those and tell us about it.
Well, the one I've been telling this weekend, especially Jingles, one that really stands out a lot in my mind was the helmet law protest we had in Columbus, Indiana. We were down there, and that's the year that Yaki and those guys came up with burying the helmet law effigy, hanging a dummy, hanging the helmet law and all that. We'd done all that, and the press had come out to see us. And I was still toward the back, greeting the bikers and showing them where to park, because I parked bikes too, And the press had come. TV camera crew came out. And the next thing I see, I look out, and it's quite a ways away, but I see Jingles with this helmet, and it was a booby helmet. It was painted pink and a nipple sticking up, talking and being filmed by the press. I ran as fast as my legs could take me. I begged and pleaded with that lady, please don't show us something. Please don't show us something. And I gave her another interview, but I guess they said she didn't show, the actual interview with him, but he got a clipping. He got in the clip of it, But they showed the interview with me, but he got a clip. They showed it. It's like, oh my God, needless to say, he was in trouble for a long time for that.
I think we still have that guy. Yeah, he's still around. His name may have changed, but we still have him. Obviously, rider education was a big step and a major accomplishment, but what do you tout as probably the greatest success, or what you're most proud of that happened in those early years?
Well, I think convincing the bikers to do this, to start ABATE, and work together and repeal, to work together and repeal that whole law was the biggest accomplishment, I believe.
I don't think there'd be any argument in this room. And again, we're again most grateful that you were able to get that done when you did, so we were playing catch up like the folks in Michigan had been for so long. It's so hard to get things like that turned around once they're in place, and you actually did it in a pretty short order. I mean, it was only a year and a half or two from the time the national allowed for the repeal until you got it repealed in Indiana.
Yes, it was 2 years. Actually, it was 2 years, and we were small. I mean, Michigan was bigger, more organized organization. Everybody was almost bigger and more organized than we were at the time. We just kind of started gaining momentum, you know. And I'm surprised because a lot of them fell apart. If they did get their law repealed, some of the organizations just fell apart too. But yeah, ABATE of Indiana, but I don't know, ABATE of Indiana had heart. I mean, I don't know how many times I would put in the newsletter, okay, if we don't sign people up, we can't get any members, because we'd sign them up, but it was like getting that renewal, you know, getting that renewal. And I don't know how many times I, you know, said, this is it, guys. You know, we can't keep going on like this. I don't have any money. I don't have money for the newsletters. I can't do this. As it was, you know, they got a newsletter every other month during the winter months, during the legislature, and then none in the summer, because I just couldn't afford to do it. But I said, we can't go on, you know. We're going to have to shut it down. And every time I say, this is it, I'm going to shut it down, oh, they'd go out and they sign up people, and donations would come in, they'd have a benefit, they'd do something, you know. I beg them all year long to do these things, but it takes threatening, you know. Okay, this is it, it's over with. Then they go out and do something, you know, raise some money and help me.
Well, obviously today with the internet and all the electronic communications, it's a different world, but back then, the newsletter was really all you had. Tell us what that newsletter entailed. I mean, it's not like Who's Your Motorcyclist is today. Tell us about compiling a newsletter every 2 months.
Well, I would read all the magazines, all the latest things, and reprint. Sometimes I reprint stuff because a lot of those bikers didn't read like Road Rider magazine or some of the other publications, and I did all that. And I would, anything important legislative-wise, the news, you know, stuff like that, I always reprinted that. And of course, a lot of it was the organization. We need help, we need help, we need sign-up people, we need, then when we started the regional director program, it was begging and pleading people to sign up for, be a regional director, and that kind of thing. Everyone thought it was informative, you know. They told me it was informative, and I, you know, asked, you know, for people's input. Sometimes I would, you know, reprint letters if they would send me letters. You know, it was hard to get any information. It was just mostly me rattling on and on and on. And on. That's basically what it was.
Well, they were hanging on every word, I can tell. So meetings in those days, you talked about the development of the regions. Started as a statewide organization with 1 member and 50. You thought you were pretty big stuff when you climbed that corner. When it got to the point that it was large enough that you felt necessary to break into regions, how did that start? Because I know that's happened several times where we went from like 1 to 3 to 9 to 14.
Well, it wasn't that we were big enough. That's the reason we went to regions, was to get bigger, to try to get people in these regions, sign up more people, to become a bigger organization, and to get more people involved, directly involved. And I just couldn't be everywhere. You know, everybody wanted me to travel, constantly travel, you know, and I couldn't do that. I couldn't constantly be on the road and go to every meeting and go to all these places, you know, it was just impossible for me. I just didn't have the money for one thing. And there's a lot of problems at home over that too, you know. So, you know, you had to have a brave face, you know, and you had to keep up the image, you know, but I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. So that was a great idea, and Yaki came up with the idea actually, because Michigan did it, a few of the other people did it, and they say we ought to do this, you know, here in Indiana. And I thought about it, and yeah, if I could get people, but it's just, once again, it's just like trying to sign up people. You had to grab a hold of them and beg and plead to get a regional director. Of course, I imagine all of you have to do that now too, you know.
The more things change, the more they stay the same, it seems. In keeping up, and I know that you and I try to talk as frequently as we can, but it's not near often enough, where ABATE is today versus what ABATE started as. What do you see as similarities? What do you see as differences? I mean, how would you compare the growth of the organization over the last close to 40 years?
Well, ABATE started as strictly legislative and safety. Legislative and safety, that was it. You know, we knew we wanted to have public awareness, and we wanted the licensing program, and the thing was legislative. We wanted to keep motorcycles on the road and be the watchdog, you know. And that was what ABATE was all about, was, you know, watching these laws. They wanted to put strobe lights on helmets, you know. They wanted to and have orange vests, you know, these bright, you know, road construction stuff, to have you wear that. I mean, it was just amazing, and all the different things they tried to come up with that had to be stopped, you know. So that's what ABATE was, legislation, and the motorcycle safety awareness part. That was ABATE. Today, I'm hearing, you know, ABATE of Indiana dirt, ABATE of Indiana this, ABATE of Indiana. I'm going, wow, you know, this is amazing, all this stuff. The charity work, I think, is really one of the greatest things you have really done, because it brought motorcycles into a nicer light, which we were trying to do. We're trying to get a better reputation, you know, and that was one thing I tried to establish for ABATE of Indiana. It was a good reputation for motorcycles, a good reputation for ABATE of Indiana, and why it was so important not to show up with a tit helmet on. You know, lots of those little things. You know, don't intimidate people. Leave the guns hidden, you know. Don't be pulling knives out on people, you know. It's just, it was amazing, you know. We did have our times back then. And you know, I had a few times where my life was threatened, and a couple of times they tried to steal my motorcycle. And, you know, it was the time in Indianapolis when the Diablos really created all the problems down there, and that guy had a knife in my back. And I talked my way out of it with the help of a couple of big, strong bikers. You know, I almost quit. Because they tried, you know, they had to guard my bike. You know, the caretakers that was really like adopting me, you know, which was wonderful. They was from our area, and they were 1%ers, but they were really good to me, you know, and they was always good to me, and always advised me, and always kind of watched out for me, you know. Well, they surrounded my bike and told me, you know, hey, this is what's happening down there. That's originally what got me down there around the Diablos to, you know, where the knife came in. But it was, I ran down there to protect my bike, and I ended up getting a knife in my back. But yeah, it was on the way home, I just kept thinking about, what am I doing? I have to be crazy. I have to be crazy to keep putting myself in this situation all the time. But you think about all the good people and all the wonderful people that believed in you. And there's nothing like having that many people believe into you to make you greater than you are, to make you do things and become someone, you know, that you never thought possible, or that you could even do these things. They, you know, because of them and their heart, and like I said, ABATE of Indiana heart had so much heart, and that's why I did what I did. Again, we're so happy to do it.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about these things you brought with you?
Oh, yes. Well, you know, to prove a point, Indiana had, like a lot of states, had passed the helmet law, but they said to protective headgear meeting the standards of the DOT. The DOT didn't have any standards. They didn't have any tests, they didn't have nothing, you know. So no set of standards ever made into law. So according to the law, protective headgear could be anything, as long as it protects your head from something, you know. So, and I hated, like I said, I hated wearing it, and the neck and everything. So I came up with the idea, I thought, you know, so I went down to Perry's, G.L. Perry's, bought me a Army helmet, spray painted it black, and put a little Harley emblem on it, and made a strap for it, and then at the grocery store, I was walking around, and I seen a sticker on this floor, DOT inspected. Idea. So I picked it up, slapped it on here, and I wore this, and I can tell you how many states, and not one time did they pull me over for this. haven't lost socks, stickers on the back. And this is my vest. Oh, you have to excuse me here. Get all emotional sometimes about this stuff. But this is the vest I wore, you know, with my name on it. I figured I needed every bit of protection I could get. So, you know, State Director ABATE of Indiana as big and bold as I could have it, you know, and my name tag, and hey, I'm official, you know.
Still goes on today.
This is the only one ever made, but, because back patches are a no-no to ABATE of Indiana, you know, no back patches. That puts you to a club, and you don't want to be related to a club at all. And I was against it. But I had a back patch. You know, state director. So I had that made up personally. There's people who wanted one, which I would never let them have. But you know, like I said, I had my name, you know, on everywhere. Anything that can make them, you know, keep me from getting hurt.
I think there's a piece of that you didn't show this group, though. Only a select group of people get to see that?
Oh, do
Well,
it.
I can
Do
show
it.
I guess. It's like if somebody give me a rough way to go, you know, and I always try to be a lady and try to represent a bait, you know. But, you know, as they walk away, I go.
It's all about knowing what to say and when to say it, right, Wanda?
And this patch here, just so you know, came from the USS Enterprise in the middle of the Pacific Ocean from a member in Navy. He sent that to me right after we built the helmet law, which I always thought was good. Is we must all learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools.
Sound advice, wasn't it? Sound advice, and it was true. And you needed the strength in numbers to give support to make the cause worthwhile.
Yes, we really did, and you know it was things like that. You know, people telling me to hang in there. It was always I got cards, you know, hang in there, and because I knew it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It was very hard, and toward the end, I really did have to get out. You know, I was so burned out. I mean, there was times that we was at a swap meet and signing up people, and the spiker came in, and, you know, really, I forget, it was over one of the stickers or something he made. I don't know, he made some rude comment, and I got, just like that, I lost it. I mean, I had patience, but that time, I just lost it. And the president of the caretakers, Steph Sherman, was sitting there beside me. And I jumped up, put both hands, and this is a big dude. And I had both hands on the table, ready to, I was going to do one of those leaps across the table. And all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, what are you doing? You know? And I had lost it so bad, I thought, I'm losing it, you know, and Sherm's like, oh my God, he says, I thought we was going to get in a fight, somebody's going to get hurt because they were going to hit you, and, you know, you'd have to protect me, and all that. But it was things like I was losing it. I was starting to lose it. And somebody disagreed with me, I just, you know, snatch their head off, you know. It got pretty bad because I was burned out, you know. Felt very unappreciated, and abused badly. But they, you know, I was abused badly back then because they gave me the hardest possible time. And if you endured that, at least I felt like enduring the roughest possible time and all the stuff they put me through, and still kept going on, you know, and still endured it and made it turn around some way, earned a lot of respect, you know, and made it possible for me to do my job. But, you know, it's not fun going through it. It's not fun going through it.
No, it is a lot of work, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's easy to feel unappreciated. I think that it's been pretty clear today that you are greatly appreciated by the group here in the really all motorcyclists in the state of Indiana and beyond that in this nation owe a great debt to what you started here and what has grown out of your brainchild and the hard work that set the foundation. So again, thank you very much for that. Hell, I'm getting all misty and it's not even about me.
That might be a question. But, yeah, it was just me. And it was just a state organization. It wasn't much of a state organization in the beginning. It was just more the northern, people that I drug off the streets and signed up at the Harley shop and, things like that. And then we got the protests and we got those. But it was just me. And then Jingles got involved right after, and he helped with the Kokomo protest. That was the second protest. The Southland was the first one. Kokomo was the second one. And he helped get that going and helped me do some things like that. But it was just basically him and I. Deciding, well, I just said, I hate to say it, but they always call me a dictator because I was. They would suggest things and, we talk it over and stuff, but there's a right and wrong, and I always, tried to hold it on the really right side of things. I didn't feel right about it. If I didn't feel right about it, then no, we weren't going to do it, But, we talk over things, and he helped, but the regions didn't come into effect until 1978. And I divided the state into 13 regions. We didn't have regional directors for a long time. It took forever, to have and I don't know if I'd have to look back over my book to see, because I went through all that history and stuff, but I'm not sure if we ever had all 13 regions, had a regional director for all 13. But we tried hard, to get those. Then there came a time, right before, toward the end of things, I couldn't handle it. I was getting burned out. And in 1980, I made Ron Workman the state director, and he took over the newsletter. And that didn't last. He's going like, he can't do it, he couldn't do it, it's too much for him. So I got Balls to become the northern state director, and he was the southern state director. And that didn't work out too well either, and I ended up, then the following year, in 81, it took me months of convincing, but I convinced Balls to take over the state and run the state, because he was the right person. And at the time, I knew he was. He couldn't have done it earlier. Boss was AMA, and I know we have AMA here, and I don't want to say too much about that, but and he looked at us as a joke. He really did, believe it or not. But one time, Balls looked at ABATE of Indiana as a joke, and thought I was nuts to be involved with those type of bikers and all of that. So, it took a while, and it took him seeing, that we were doing something. I was, I drug him, got him to go to the State House with me and started doing this. It's like he started seeing that these people were doing something. We were actually doing something. And that was amazing. And over the years of going to all the meetings with me, and then the AMA actually kind of, he had a falling out with them too. There was things going on there he didn't approve of or like, and and I convinced him. I says, "Hey, ABATE of Indiana, you can do these things. You don't have to ask permission. you can get out there and make these programs happen. You don't have to, go through all this." And eventually, I talked him into it.
And then it was shortly after that that Ron Kleber and Bob Butcher and those folks got involved. Cadillac and...
Ron was involved before that. Ron was great. I loved Ron. He was great. He did a lot of things for me and helped me out. And I was always trying to get him to do more and do more and do more. You know, that kind of got old with him.
This has been a remarkable time, and consider yourselves in a historical area. Pam, is that you?
Yes.
You have any questions?
Yes, I do. There's everybody in this room sacrifices a lot of time, financially, time away from home, time away from work sometimes. What kind of advice can you give us to keep us from getting burnout?
Wow. I don't know if I'm the right person to do that. I know exactly what you're talking about. It was 24/7 with me. You know, there was never a time I was off duty, never a time. And that, you've got to get off duty sometimes. You've got to get away from it once in a while. You know, I think that was the thing. Once in a while, you just got to get away from it before you break. Just to get your sanity.
Before you find yourself going across the table at somebody, right?
Yeah, before you leap across the table and attack somebody, yeah.
Thank you, Jay.
Okay.
Now, how do you feel about women in director spots?
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, ABATE has grown beyond those. I mean, back in those years, you gotta remember, there was times that a woman on a bike, when the guys ran into them, clubs would take and flip their handlebars and wreck them. Yeah. I had to be careful of that. I've been ran off the road. The guys were horrible. So that's why I'm saying back then they couldn't be associated. But I think it's wonderful now. ABATE has grown this organization. And I hope to some degree I have a little bit to do with that, has accepted women so much quicker, I think, than still other ABATE chapters. So, you know, I love it. I mean, I think it's great because women can get out there and do a lot of things that guys can't.
I'll give Pat the final question.
Many years ago there at the garage in Granger, you had a young man come out there and apply for a job from the Penny Saver, and we took him in. First thing you and boss told him was to buy a bike and learn to ride that bike. He's still here sat down in front of you. What do you think about that, Hawk?
Oh, I think he's wonderful. I didn't think he'd last. he was so young, and you know, he just looked so innocent. He just looked like, oh man, he's still not. Barney's just going to have fun with his boy. He's never going to make it. But I'm so glad he's wonderful. Mark has been a pleasure.
I certainly want to thank Kevin for working to get you here this year. Finally, he used a lot of help in making sure this happened. Really appreciate you showing up and spending some time with us, shedding some light and talking about some of the early days. I think we'll all be very excited to see the book when it comes out. Be sure to let us know. And we're anxious to spend some more time with you yet this evening, so hang around as long as you like. And once again, it is with great respect, gratitude, and love that we thank you for everything you've done for motorcyclists nationwide.